And a good Saturday evening, and welcome to the virtual Tack Room. It's hard to believe we're in the final few days of May, and we are set to go for the final show of the season here tonight. And I'm Lee Drake, one of your hosts for the program for this evening, and we're looking forward to an action-packed show tonight. It's been another action-packed week, too, when you look at all the different announcements that's been happening. And of course, qualifiers that were held, another set of qualifiers held today. Had a little bit of rain in the forecast today. It started around, 11:30 or 12 o'clock, and then held for part of the program, and then the other back half of the program they got away without the rain. But it was so nice to see so many out qualifying today. We got a lot of horses in the horse population, and the harness racing community has done just a fantastic job, really, of stepping up and following the guidelines, and that's laid out by the Chief Public Health. So we really do appreciate that from Red Shores, from the harness racing industry, and of course, everyone involved to get this rolling. We've had a lot of talk about the virtual tack room over the last number of weeks, and we really can't say enough about all the comments that were coming in. And with our final show tonight, I know one question we seem to get a lot this week, especially when we rolled out today, that this would be the final show. For now, that's all we can say. We will have conversations of what the virtual tack room could look like going forward, or where it may appear again. But in any case, it's been a great run for the last 10 weeks. I want to start with thank you to Scott McLean and UMI Sports producing the show tonight. We have several locations you can find us. You can find us on the Facebook page, of course. That is with UMI Sports. If you're not on Facebook, you can also go to redshores.ca, click on the live racing tab, and you can, of course, find the virtual tack room there. So an action-packed show. How about this for a show? A tribute to Joe O'Brien, a tribute to Some Beach Somewhere, and we have a legend trainer, driver, Hall of Famer Clarkie Smith, who will be joining us in just a minute. But right now, let's bring in my co-hosts for tonight in the virtual tack room. We're going to Cornwall, and once again, we'll be on the desk or separate desks next week, Peter. It's going to be great to be back on the live program, racing program, but great to see you tonight, Peter McPhee, on the virtual tack room.
Great to see you as well, Lee, and hi to Jerry and hi to Kent as well. Lee, as you mentioned, great to see those qualifiers last Saturday. Great to see the qualifiers Thursday. And then today, again, you mentioned the weather held up for most of the day, Lee. We'll see some tomorrow as well. And it all leads to June 4th, next Thursday night, Lee. You'll be on one desk, I'll be on the other. Can't wait to see you.
So we're back with Jerry McCabe, of course, this week. And over the last number of weeks, Jerry, it's just been an awesome run down memory lane. And tonight, I have to say that when you look at the lineup that we have tonight, it is one standout of a show.
It certainly is a Hall of Fame lineup tonight, Lee. Hard to believe our 10 weeks have gone back by as quickly as they have. Great to see racing starting on so many fronts. Qualifiers today in St. John and New Brunswick as well, tomorrow in Truro. Racing across the continent is starting to gear back up. Everybody's looking forward with anticipation to getting back at it, getting back into a real tack room before too long, but baby steps. We'll enjoy the racing as it comes for the time being.
All right, good to see you, Jerry, and Kent Oakes joining us on the line tonight. And Kent, a 10-week run here in the virtual tack room. And as Jerry just mentioned, it is so great to see so many people back, especially in the Atlantic Canada region, getting back on the track and doing what we love.
Absolutely, it's great to see, and it's been a really good start to the season so far on PEI. Some impressive performances by a number of horses in the qualifiers, and really looking forward to getting back on track next Thursday.
So 904 in the Atlantic region, I can tell you this, that with the technology, the help of technology, we'll be covering a lot of ground tonight. We'll be in the Atlantic region, we'll be in Ontario as well, and right now our first guest tonight is certainly no stranger and has a lot of respect in the harness racing industry when it comes to what he's done over the years. He's a Hall of Famer. He's a top driver at many tracks throughout the Maritimes in his day, and also just recently picked up a great honor last year during Old Home Week by Premier Dennis King with the Joe Smallwood Award. And we are very pleased to have Clarkie Smith joining us tonight. Good evening, Clarkie.
Good evening.
It's so great to see you.
It's great to be on your show. Thanks for having me, and I hope things will go good.
Well, it's going to go great, Clarkie. I know that you have quite a backdrop there behind you. We were marveling in it just a few minutes ago, but all the great pictures that you have behind you in such a Hall of Fame career. I want to start tonight, but get us to tell us about your family history in harness racing industry.
Well, there was 4 boys in the family and 1 girl. They're all in the horse business one time or another. Elmer, as you know, and David, my brother, he's out west, and Wendell and Nimfurl and Grant. He did have a horse at one time, but he found that he was making too much money, so he had to get out of the business. But no, we've had a good time, and we've had a good life, and everything's been great for me in the race business, and that's the best part of it.
Clarkie, we just rolled a couple of photos there. I want to get some shots there. Maybe Scott can bring them back up there. Just a couple of those photos in the first segment here, and you can tell us a little bit about them. Scott, can you bring up those photos there? This photo right here. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
That's a photo with my father, Cyril Smith. He was driving Poplar Flash. That's me in the middle with the 1-horse called Gallant Way. And that's Harry Polton on the outside, the number 3 horse, with a horse called the Sheik. And I think that particular night, if it wasn't a new track, it was the track record. It was back then, and there's another photo there that was taken over at the track in Co-Fed a long time ago, and that is my dad again on the rail, on the inside horse with Billy Aubrey, and the horse on the outside is a horse driven by Lloyd O'Brien, which is brothers O'Brien and Klein. Now, Lloyd had a bunch of good horses at a Halifax at that time, and he went to Maine, and then he went to Foxborough, and he was killed in a bad car accident just when he was starting to get real popular. It was a sad thing, but they all said I didn't know him, but Dad did know him, and they said he was a real good fellow and a good driver. And on the back of that photo, you'll see some writing that my mother put on, and she said, Dad went to sleep. he was coming down the stretch, and he thought he had it all won. And Lloyd come up on the outside and beat him. She wrote in the back of the photo that he went to sleep, but I didn't bother arguing with him over that. That's the story on that picture.
Clarkie, it's Peter. Thank you for coming on tonight. Can you remember some of your first pari-mutuel drives and when? Can you tell us about that?
Well, I'm no good at remembering times, but I can remember the first drive was in Chatham, New Brunswick, with a horse called Bobby Hunter. It was a 3-dash affair, and there were 3 heats, and Donnie Simmons, a friend of mine, and we took that horse from here up to Chatham, New Brunswick for an early closer, and it was quite an afternoon, 3 heats, and I was lucky enough to win the first 2. And the third heat, I got beat. I finished second. I don't know who was the tiredest, the horse or me, but it was a big day, and it was one race that you never forget your first win. But that day we were lucky enough to win 2 heats and finish second. And we went up the day before and stayed all night, raced that afternoon, and come home the next day. It seemed at that time from Charlottetown to Chatham, I didn't think we were ever going to get there, but it all turned out good. Yeah, it was a big day.
Clarkie, it's Kent here. I know
Yeah,
I've got another question I'm going to ask you, but I also know you told me a story about, I think it was maybe driving Bobby Hunter in Summerside, and I believe you thought you had a race won, was it, if I recall the story correctly?
yeah. A lot of people don't know this story, but a lot of people did know it. But in fact, that was that same horse, Bobby Hunter. It was his second start. It was the start, I think, of Lobster Carnival Week, and it was two heats. In the first heat, I let the horse go to the front, and I sat in the 2 hole. And when it come time to come down the home stretch, I got beat. I finished second. Anyway, I had to go another heat, and I said, I'm going to change things around here a little bit. I'm going to cut the next file out. So we left the gate, and I went to the front, and I'm sitting there pretty proud of myself. And all of a sudden, I heard this horse coming, and I looked over, and he went by me just and opened up like 6 lengths, 7 lengths. And I said, what? Where did that horse come from? And anyway, when we pulled, the horse was Bay State Pat. And Andrew Perry owned him and drove him himself that night and probably the next start too. But I always remembered, I said, that's one race I thought I was going to win, so Bay State Pat went by me.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
and he would buy a lot of other horses
and
later on, yeah.
yeah, we drove a lot of horses after that, but I do remember that particular Bay State Pat because he went on to be one of the best horses in Canada. Roach McGregor raced him, and he got to be like a champion, and he was owned by Andrew Perry and Summerside, and uh, I remember, you always remember getting beat by the best.
Yeah. Well, you're right. He is a Canadian Hall of Fame horse. He was a terrific
Oh,
story.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Clarkie, early in your career, you trained horses for Stanley Mayo, who owned and bred literally hundreds of horses over his lifetime and had stables at many racetracks. This is a picture of Stanley, and it notes that to celebrate Canada's birthday in July 1st, 1967, Stanley raced 56 horses on that one day. I know you worked for Stanley in the 50s. Could you tell us about the experience of working with Stanley and people like Basil Whalen?
Yeah, well, as I said, I was with my father for 2 years, and then at the end of the second year, Stanley come and wanted to hire me, and of course I went to work with him, and we had two horses then. Uh, Famous Boy was one of them, and he had went away to Maine and bought a horse called Tribune, and he landed home with him and put him in the barn. And he said, Clarkie, I want you to take good care of this horse. He said, I just paid $1,000 for him. I said, yeah, you paid quite a bit. Anyway, he turned out to be worth every penny of it. And it just got from there, right. Uh, One year we went to Maine to race. We left St. John with 6 horses, and I come home with 12. And he just kept buying and breeding them and buying them. And when you say about the number that he raced in one day, I knew all about that. That he was a great fellow to work for, and he we always had to have help to help me, and we always raced like a big stable of horses. And one year, one year, and uh, we needed help, and somebody suggested that Basil Whalen was available, and I said, Stanley, I think we better go and have a talk to him and see if we can't get him to come to work with us. And we did, and he came with us. And Basil was a good blacksmith. Like, he could really shoe a horse, make a great job of getting a horse balanced right and shod right. One particular horse that Stanley had bought from Milton Downey, and he wasn't much. He used to make bad breaks, and he hit himself in everywhere. And Basil was working, and he took him out and trained him, and he said, "We got to do something with this fella." So he shot him 3 times one day. He changed his shoes. He'd go out, come back in. No, he's not right yet. And he done that. 3 different kind of shoes he put on him. So that was all right. The third time he came in, he said, "I think we got him. I think we got him pretty good." So didn't have to qualify back then, and we put him in the race in Summerside. And sure enough, I went out and I won with him. And Stanley came back to the barn after, and I thought he might be pretty happy this horse won. He said, "That race just cost me $500. I said, "What do you mean by that?" He said, "Milton Downey wanted $1,500 for that horse," and he said, "I offered him $1,000, and I said if we give him a new record, I'd give you the other $500. So now I got to go and give Milton another $500. But San Diego was well worth the extra $500 because we got a lot of good racing out of him, and I know for sure only for Basil, I don't think he'd ever got a new record. It was his shoeing, and it was him that made the horse, not me. I drove him, but he hung him out and got him to race good. No, Stanley, he, anybody that I needed or I wanted to work. That particular year, I had Leonard Walsh, which is still at the racetrack, and Fenton McKay, and I think we had 12 or 14 horses in the barn. And if we send Leonard and Basil to Moncton with a load every now and again, they'd go over and race them and come back home. And we had 2 good years with Basil. The second year, Stanley shipped him up to Fredericton with Jackie Bernard. He thought he needed some help with hanging some horses out and showing them. So he instead of leaving them with me, he sent Basil up to Fredericton with Jackie, and everything worked out. But Basil was one fella, besides my father, that really taught me. He even showed me how to shoe a horse in some ways. No, he was a real big help. The boys, as you know, Jimmy and Walter and Gerard, and they're only young fellas then, but I remember them growing up, and then eventually Basil went to Ontario, and when I went to Ontario, I seen him up there, and he was one of the better fellas. I could name an awful lot of horses that he got that weren't too much and made real good horses out of them. One horse was a horse called Sing Along. I know the boys in Summerside, when the Basil started with him, he wasn't much, but when he was done, everybody knew who Sing Along was.
Thanks, Clarkie. Jerry here. Another notable horse you had for Stanley was Tammany Hall.
That's
he
right.
co-owned him with Jack Brown.
Yep.
And we also have, he was the first horse you drove in the Gold Cup and Saucer in 1962. Right.
Yep.
I'll ask you what you remember about that race, Clarkie. And did you feel a lot of pressure driving in that big race for the first time?
Well, yes, they raced. Another fellow brought that horse from St. John and raced him Monday night. And after the race, Stanley and Jack Brown bought him, and then they put him in the Gold Cup, and I raced him. And it was two heats, and the first heat, there was a bad accident in that race. If you had a scorecard, there was two or three horses that didn't finish, and I was lucky enough to miss it and finish second. These boy won it, and I finished second, and I think June Bird or whatever, the ones that weren't involved in the accident. Then we had to go to the second heat, and there was a horse in there called Bob Brooks, and Greg McDonald was driving him, and he was one that went down in the accident, and they got him back up and got him ready. There was today he would have been scratched because he went down, but we went out for the second heat, and we left out of there, and of course I couldn't beat these boy out of there, and Bob Brook was on the outside of me, and I thought after him, like falling down, I don't have to worry too much about him. And I let him in ahead of me, and going up the three-quarter pole, he took out, and I come out behind him, and both of us went by these boy. He won it, and I finished second again, and I was pretty proud of myself finishing 2-2. I thought that was better than 1-3 or DNF 1. But anyhow, it turned out that the 1 and the 3 was better than the 2 and the 2. But that was the start of my drive in Tammany Hall. I drove a lot of races after that, and he was a real nice horse, a nice horse to drive, real good mannered, and it wasn't hard to drive horses like him.
Clarkie,
So
you drove a lot of races, and as you said, that really started off your career. And throughout that career, you won many awards. We have a picture here, 1962 Maritime Leading Driver Award, seen here being presented by Joe Hennessy and Duck Acorn. Now,
yes.
racing was much more seasonal back then. Can you tell us a little bit about this picture and what that meant to you, and what your schedule was like in a racing year?
Well, at that time, we only raced, like, say, from the 1st of June till the 1st of November, probably, and then you were done for the rest of the year. And we just raced, like, well, twice a week mostly in Charlottetown, once in Summerside. And that made it a short year, like, but you had to do as good as you could, and when you had the chance to do it, the picture, as you see, Duck Acorn was announcer and classifier, and I raced a lot of horses under Duck, and Joe Hennessy there, I raced against him and got to be real good friends with him and his family. He was a great fellow to drive against, and like I say, like that picture, I've looked at it quite a few times, and I always remember that particular trophy. That was something probably that no driver had ever won at that time. So it was an honor to get that trophy, and I just had to keep going on after that.
Clarkie, you're also a member of the PEI Sports Hall of Fame, and we're going to get a shot here. You won the Leading Driver Award at Summerside and Charlottetown. Here you are here, Sackville Downs and St. John, so all across the Maritimes. And that award, the old Home Week Award now is called the Francis Macisaac Memorial Award. You won that an amazing 7 times. and you were close friends with
Yes.
Francis. We're going to show a picture of
Yes.
Francis here with Craig's call. Here it is here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know you have
Well,
I know you have a story about Francis during one of those old home week driving titles and your level of sportsmanship. Can you tell us about that?
yeah, and I'm going to tell you, but just take a good look at that picture there that you're looking at, and you notice Francis got his head down. And Francis was not a man to chew tobacco, red man chewing tobacco. He used to chew it all the time. And I think there he wanted to spit, so he had to put his head down. But that was ours, Craig's call. And he was a maiden when we got him. Everett Stewart owned him, and he bought him and sent him to Halifax to me. And we got him going the second year. First year he wasn't. But we got him ironed out and we got him going, and it was quite a thrill to get him maiden and get him good enough for the Gold Cup. That particular race that night, it was on a Saturday night, and I had 6 horses racing in St. John, and I called Everett and said, Everett, I can send the horse over, but I can't go myself. You'll have to get Francis or somebody to drive him. So Everett said, we'll get Francis to drive him. And he drove him and he won with him. And anyway, it come Gold Cup and Saucer night. And of course, I drove him and I got into trouble going up the 3/4 pole. The fellow come out a little late or I was driving a little close. But I hooked wheels and that ended the show as far as winning. And I was quite disappointed. Donnie's wife, Melanie, was the Gold Cup and Saucer girl that night and drew him. And I was really mad at myself, disappointed, I guess, but I could have went 5 wide up the backstretch, and I'm sure I'd have won that race. But that's the luck of the draw, I guess. But I didn't blame anybody, only myself, because the horse was good enough that night that I know if I had went 4 or 5 wide with him, I'd have got my picture taken. But that's just another story of it. The Gold Cup that I never had a whole lot of luck driving in the Gold Cup, but I always enjoyed driving in it. And anyway, getting back to Francis, one of them years, I had a mare raced and raced her, and George Murphy wanted her and wanted to buy her. He had horses with Francis, and come all home week, and George's horses weren't doing all that great that week, and this mare Chum, I knew her because I drove her a lot, and there's lots of nights she wouldn't try for me, and I had Henry Smallwood working with me, and I'd put Henry up on her, and she'd go out and win, and so Francis come down. She was in to go, and it was on a Friday, and he said, Clarkie, if I can get a driver change made, would you drive that mare? He said, I got to get a win for George Murphy. He's not having a great week, and I know that mare ain't trying for me. So I said, Francis, we're pretty close in the driving thing here for all home week, and he said, I need a win more than I need that trophy. So I said, suit yourself. So he got the driver change made, and of course, I went out and I won with her. And anyway, next morning we went up to Sam's Restaurant and had a breakfast for the $25 prize we got. Yeah, but he was a great fellow, Francis. He drove different horses for me over the years, but that particular week, if I hadn't have drove that mare, he would have won the driving championship that week. I think I ended up beating him by 2 points, and if I hadn't have drove Chum, then he'd have won instead of me. But anyway, he got some kick out of
that. Next, Clarkie, we have a photo from Sackville Downs of the members of the Thousand Wind Club. And from left is Soupy Campbell, yourself, Dougie Walsh, Frankie Daniels, Phil Pinkney, Gary Daniels, Red Clark, Sonny Rankin, and Dave Pinkney. And then we also have a couple photos from the Sackville reunion that we had, 3 or 4 years ago. And in this photo from the back, on the back is Wally Hennessy, Earl Smith, Barney McGuigan, Callie Rankin, yourself, Gussie Ratchford, and the front row is Joe Smallwood, Bernie Charlton, Junior Chappell, Ali Carr, and Lester Chappell. And then we also have a picture from that day with yourself, Gussie Ratchford, and Joe Smallwood. There must be a lot of memories of racing at Sackville there, yeah.
A lot of memories there, a lot of memories. Gussie and I were great friends. Joe Smallwood and I drove together when we both started out. And one spring, Joe had arthritis pretty bad, and he had that good horse called Saul's Pride, and he couldn't drive, and he was in a free-for-all race in St. John, and he shipped him over, and I drove him, and then the next week was in Moncton at Brunswick Downs, and he put my name down to drive him again, and I drove him, and I guess I just got him. I just started to get used to him his second drive, and then Joe, he got better and he started driving, and I think he won the Gold Cup and Saucer that year. But not too many people got a chance to drive Saul's Pride, but I did on account of Joe Smallwood. He also,
Clarkie?
one time, Joe, I was in Sackville and I had a trotter for Charlie Hogan and Paul Hogan. And there was an invitation trot in Summerside, and they wanted me to take him over and race him. And I said, I'll send the horse over, but I ain't driving him. I had a problem with the judge there, and kind of foolish on my part. But anyway, I sent the horse over, and Joe, he won with him, won 2 heats with him. He was a pacing horse that I put on the trot, and his name was Larry Hanover, but Joe just jumped right on him and win both heats with him, and that made Charlie and Paul really happy. It turned out good. But Joe and I, we come up through from maidens, and Joe had a lot of real good horses, and as I said, like all the drivers, I had no trouble, or I didn't think I had any trouble driving against any of them. I don't think I give them much trouble, only when I beat them. But they beat me more times probably than I beat them. But there were a great bunch of drivers back then, and all the people that you people had on your show, Phil Pinkney and a lot of them, I drove against an awful lot of good drivers, and I still love to see pictures and stuff of fellas like Phil Pinkney and all the Pinkneys and everybody that I drove against in my career. I still get a kick out of it. Yeah.
Clarkie, we now have some photos from throughout your career we're going to flip through. I'm going to ask you to speak about the last one. This first one was you joining the 2000 Win Club, back at St. John in
Yeah,
1982, only the second Maritime driver to do that. Here you're with your
that's right.
great-grandson, Quentin, out at the farm in
Yeah,
Oyster Bed.
yeah.
And
He
there's
come
a
home
shot of
from
you,
Toronto. That's a horse
to beat
called
Power.
Topic Power. That was a 3-year-old stake race in Truro. I think it was the Donnie Turner probably. And Big Johnny Davis from St. John trained that horse and got me to drive him quite often. I drove him quite often. I'm pretty sure that's a Donnie Turner, and we won it that day. Yeah, he
Yeah.
was a nice big horse. Yeah.
And this
This
is a
is
photo of,
the Stanfield. I
yeah,
think it says on there the Stanfield 3-year-old fillies, and
yeah,
that's a
with
mare called
Sale of the Century.
that's a mare called Sale of the Century that Everett Stewart also owned. We bought her at the sale, first filly that went in the sale that year, and we kind of liked her and we bought her and got her broke in, and she turned out to be a real good filly. Everett raced her, and then he sold her, and she ended up going to the States, and we never heard much after her. Yeah, this another picture that I remember quite well.
Clipper
Are you still
Sealster
there?
with the first, yeah, Clipper
Yeah,
Sealster with the
that was
first sub 2 minute mile. And you had
the
lots of
first
connections in
two.
this race, Clarkie.
Yes, I'll tell you a story on that horse too. Paul Darius
Mm-hmm.
owned him, and I was next door to them in St. John, and this horse was kind of making breaks, training him. He was making breaks, and one day Paul come in and he said, "Clarkie, will you take that horse and go a mile with him and try to tell me what's going on or why he's making breaks?" So I went out and I went around with him and come to a shadow, and he jumped. He jumped right over the shadow. And I pulled him up and come back in. I said, "Paul, he's jumping shadows." He said he got a shadow roll on. Well, I said, "It ain't big enough. We got to get a bigger one on him." So anyway, we put a bigger shadow on him, and I went out and trained him again, and he went fine. He went good. And I trained him a few more times and then qualified him. And I think I drove him probably once or twice. And then Paul kept on racing him and ended up that fall sending him to Montreal to Mike McDonald. And Mike got a lot of good racing. He came back the next year, and that particular night, there was another horse in that race that finished second. His name was Big U. He'd come in from Maine for a big race in St. John, and they put my name down to drive him. And I didn't get along very good with him. He didn't like the track all that good. And anyway, the next week was the big race there in Fredericton, and I had a horse called Ty Gorman in the race, and Willard Kerr drove him, and as you've seen there, he won the race in first 2 minutes, better than 2 minutes, and Big U was second. Mike Camel drove him, as you can see there, and at least I said I was in the first 2 minute race in the Maritime. I didn't finish very close, but I was in it. But that Clipper
Clarkie,
Sealster got to be a real nice horse. He also had a good horse called Colombo Sealster that I drove, and Francis Macisaac also drove him. And uh, there were two real good horses back then.
now, Clarkie, when you talk about the Maritimes, of course, we know all the great work you did there, but we're going to take you to Ontario now. You moved to Ontario and you competed there for several years. and you trained and drove for Hall of Famer Charlie Juravinsky. Tell us about that experience.
Well, that was another great experience for me. Anyway, I had been up there for a couple of years, and I worked with two different outfits, like, and then I went back, and one day Charlie got a hold of me, and he had six colts or yearlings to break in, and he said, "I'd like to hire you to break these six colts in." And I thought, well, we talked about wages, and we made a deal. And he said, if two things I'd like you to try to do your best to do. And I said, yeah, what would that be? And he said, well, number one, I don't want to see a lame horse on the track of mine. And number two, I don't want to even hear of a positive test. Well, I said, I think we'll try to do our best not that that happen. But we went on and broke. The first crop was a filly called Play Breeze, and she won the 2-year-old Ontario Sires of the year. She was the best 2-year-old filly of the year. And then the next crop was that mare called Alimony. There was six. We broke in six that fall, and she was one of the six. And she was a real nice filly right from day one. She loved doing what she had to do. We used to train like three at a time, and she just, you could tell right from day one that this mare, like, she really showed you that she wanted to be a racehorse. And that year I come home, and Charlie hired another fella, and they went on. But that year he had the vets check her, and they thought her knees weren't quite developed, and she was a big filly, and she needed, really, they advised them they shouldn't probably race her as a 2-year-old and wait. So he didn't race her as a 2-year-old, and brought her back out as a 3-year-old, and she was something else. She was a real good mare. But as I said, we had the six that I broke in from that fall. We had good luck. I think five out of the six of them raced. But she was something you could tell, like training her. She just wanted to do everything good, and really liked doing what she was doing. Lovely gaited mare. Anyway, she turned out to be something else. Charlie, he a great fellow to work for. As I said, the two things that he wanted, I done my best to do that right. And uh, I, I can't say enough good about Charlie, because he did start Flamborough Downs up, and as you people know, there's been a pile of Maritimers, Islanders, that settled in Flamborough and done really good. I'd be here all night telling you all the names, but Paul McKenzie and the Rankins, and there's just so many that landed in Flamborough that done really good. And only for Charlie taking over Flamborough Downs, who knows? It's something like Red Shores. If they hadn't taken over Charlottetown and Summerside, we don't know really. Things weren't going right good till Red Shores took it over. And it's the same thing with Charlie. Things weren't going real good. The racing business wasn't that great until he took over Flamborough Downs. And That's the same as here with Red Shores. Things got better since they took over the racing end of it on the island and Summerside. They've done a great job. I raced in the olden days, and I raced some since they took it over, and they got a great facility, the best you could get anywhere. And they really like Charlie. He deserves an awful lot of credit because he made a racetrack, and a lot of horsemen, from the Maritimes and the island went there. Like now, the Shepherds are there; they're doing right good, and I could go on here forever telling you people had done real good in Glenbar. They would have done good here too, but they they done real good up there too. Anyway, he was a great fellow to work for. He never tell you what to do, or he wants the horses looking good, and he didn't want one out in the track lame, and neither did I. So that was an easy order to go by.
Clarkie, you talked about
He's still
alimony.
living. Yeah.
We want to talk about alimony just a little bit more before we go to the next question. We want to tell folks how good she really was. She was twice named a divisional champion by USTA, 3 O'Brien Awards, Canada Horse of the Year in 1995, and over 1.4 million in purses. We're going to show a race of hers from the Meadowlands now, and we'll get some comments after this race.
Luke's Magic 7th. Alimony continues to sit 8th. And it's another 2 back to If You Could See Me Now. Trailing is What's New. The half in 54-2. Onto the far turn in Breathless Fate. She leads at a length and a half. Topaz Blue Chip second. Waltzing third. Coast up on the rim fourth. Luke's Magic 5th. Towards the inside, Petra Scooter. Then it's Some Kind of Wonderful. Alimony is going to have to launch a 3-wide bid from the back. They approach 3/4. Breathless Fate. She's still the one to catch. Waltzing getting a perfect trip. 3/4. 1:22-3. 3/16 to go, and they're on their way home. And Breathless Fate. Campbell. The lead is 2. Waltzing second. Here comes Alimony, and she's flying. Alimony full of pace on the outside. And here she comes, just exploding by this field. And Alimony, she wins it going away in 1:51, equaling a world record.
How good was that, Clarkie?
Well, I could tell when we were training that as a 2-year-old, and you come from behind with her. That's what she loved to do. She just wanted to go ahead, and she showed how good she was right there in that race.
Mm-hmm. We have another highlight for you here now, Clarkie.
Oh, yeah.
2 years. Last year, you got to participate in the Gold Cup again, along with your granddaughter, Whitney. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Well, that was quite an experience, all right. Was kind of a dare, like Whitney. She was a granddaughter, and they picked her to be the Gold Cup and Salsa girl, and she really enjoyed it. She went around right up till that night, and she made a suggestion that probably I should get in the car with her and help her get out of the car when we get down the wire. And some of my family said, no, you wouldn't do that. And I got thinking about it. And Easton, her brother, he was driving the car. Well, I said, we might as well make it a family thing. So I got dolled up, and we never told nobody. The family knew, but we didn't tell Lee Drake. We didn't tell nobody. Vance Cameron. We just said we're just gonna go down along and go along with this. And when I got out of the car, I was in the car for quite a while. We got in the car up the top of the stretch, and I was in the car for quite a while. And when I went to get out of the car and put my foot down on the ground, my darn foot was asleep. And I, holy moly! So as you can see there, I got one arm around Whitney, and my foot was half asleep, and she started walking over, and Adam was there, and he said, "No, you keep going." Oh, I said, "No, Adam, this is your job." If I had kept going with my foot asleep, and a lot of the people would have said I might have got into some alcohol or something. It was great. She got a kick out of it. The whole family got a kick out of it. It was great. That was one part of the Gold Cup and Saucer that I had never done. I was in lots of parades, like post parades, but that is good. We had walked around, seen the race, all the race, and her horse went right to the front, and God, we're pretty happy there for a while. He was out in front, but he didn't finish all that great. But it didn't matter to her. She loved being a Gold Cup and Saucer girl, and we had a real big laugh over me getting out of the car and helping her out. It was great. Yeah,
Yeah, it certainly was, Clarkie. Yeah. Clarkie, last year, Premier Dennis King established an award in memory of the late Joe
yeah.
Smallwood to be presented each year for dedication to and sportsmanship in harness racing. You were the first winner, which is shown here. In the pictures yourself, June Coyle, Premier Dennis King, and David McKenzie, the general manager of Red Shores. Clarkie, what did it mean to you to win this award?
Oh, it was the surprise that I got. Like we went in, there was a pancake breakfast on that morning at the track, and Bernie McGuigan, my friend Bernie, there, I was on the phone saying, "You got to make sure you come into this breakfast." I said, "Well, what's so special about this breakfast?" I wonder. So anyway. Uh, Come Sunday morning, Donnie, my son, he come down, and his wife, and we all landed in there and sat around the table, and Dennis King come around talking to me, and different people, a lot of people come. There was a good crowd on that morning, and all of a sudden they started talking about this an award, and what led up to be eligible to get it. And halfway through the the speech, I said, "I believe they're talking about me." Anyway, holy, I was some surprised. I wasn't ready for it at all. Never had a clue that it was going to happen. And I was really proud and really honored to win it. And but I couldn't talk very good. If they ever even give me a little hint that they were going to give it to me, I might have made up a little speech. But they pulled a big surprise off on me, and I done well to stand there and get me a picture taken. But it was great. I was really honored because, as I said before, Joe and I come up through the business together pretty well, and I had great respect for him. He was a real good horseman, and it was a real honor for me to win it. And I hope that next year comes, that ever who wins it will appreciate it as much as I did.
Well, Clarkie, I was there that day and was just honored to be there. I actually had a picture taken with you after that award presentation, and it's a special picture for me for
Yeah,
sure. And I know everybody that was there that morning felt very special about it. We're going to show a video clip here. I know last week or a couple weeks ago now we had Ken Murphy on, and here's a video of you
yeah.
out on the track. 83 years young, still jogging a horse. So what's it like to be out on the track there and be around Kenny's place? It's
Yeah,
you're still going strong.
yeah, oh, yeah. No, we're still able to get on the bike there or on the jog cart. I don't know if you noticed coming out when I was going out on that. Clifford, Kenny's father, was jogging a horse, and he seen me coming. He went way over in the field in with the way he giving me all kinds of room. Yeah, but we go over to Kenny's every morning. It's great. I really like it. I I lost my wife, and I kind of got in a bad mood. I didn't want to do nothing or go anywhere. And uh, some friends of mine, we got together and got a colt, and we took him over to Kenny Murphy's barn there, and got him broke in, and it's been great. It's been good for me, and I love doing it. And he has a lot of visitors over there, and a lot of people come to visit, and it's been great for me to be able to go over and still make on that I'm doing a good job. uh, yeah, it's been great.
Well, Clarkie, look, we were so excited when you agreed to come on the show this week, and we followed so much of your career, and anytime that when you top driver at all the different tracks, a Hall of Famer, and still such an influence on so many people in the industry. It's just been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show tonight, and we want to thank you for joining us in the
Well,
virtual tack room.
it's been a pleasure to be on it. I'd like to thank everybody, and I hope your show will keep going on. It's been great. It just couldn't have started at a better time with this virus that's going on, and it was something different, and it was great to be able to sit down and watch your program. It took our minds off of this virus thing that's on the go. But no, I really hope that uh, Lee, you just said here a while ago we're not making no predictions on the future, but I really hope that this program keeps going, and you keep having lots of fellows like myself on it to really show what harness racing's all about.
Well, thank you, Clarkie, and coming from you, that means a lot. You have a great night. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Good night.
Thanks, Clarkie.
There's Hall of Famer Clarkie Smith joining us tonight, and what a segment that has been on the virtual tack room tonight. When we talked about the top of the show, we said that we had a Hall of Fame show lined up, and we certainly do. Let's move on to the half now with our next guest that's coming up. Of course, when we talk about horses that made a tremendous impact in our sport, you can't think of another name but other than Some Beach Somewhere. And when you think of a name like Some Beach Somewhere and a horse, you think of an ownership group and a trainer like Brent McGrath, who has agreed to come on the show tonight. And what a pleasure it is to have him on the show. Good evening, Brent.
Good day, guys.
Brent, before we start into some of the pictures and the story about Beach, I just want to get your thoughts. When we talked earlier in the week and I mentioned Clarkie Smith, you had a lot of great things to say about Clarkie Smith, and as a matter of fact, you must have really enjoyed that segment there with Clarkie.
Yeah, I did. I've known Clarkie a long time, the whole family. I mean, Cyril and Marge were in Thurl for most of my life, and I worked for Phil at Pinckney and Sackville for a lot of years with Clarkie in the first barn on the left when you come in, and he was always a gentleman on the racetrack. He was a gentleman to drive with and against, and he would help out. He'd help anybody out anytime. A great horseman, great colt guy, and he didn't. I remember when he went to Toronto, he started out with Kate Mitchell's. Kate Mitchell's stable, and we were in Ontario at the time, and he did a great job with them too. They developed a lot of nice horses over his time there with John Courage, of course, was his son-in-law, and Clarkie certainly brought a lot of experience to the group.
Now, this segment here we're really looking forward to tonight, and we've got several questions and photos and some video clips coming up. But let's start with, I'll open with this question tonight. Tell us how the Schooner stable was put together.
Well, actually, the Gary Pye is a partner in the car business. I went to work for Gary when I come back from Ontario after racing in 1989, and I had get into the car business up there, and I went to work with Gary, and we had owned a few horses in Truro, Maritime breds, and he was obviously involved because of my passion for the racing, and he liked it. He enjoyed the horses. He liked going to the barn and the carrots, and Pam Dean had been a great customer of mine for a number of years, and Jamie Bagnall had been in the business previously and had gotten out, got married and started a family. And Jamie was also a customer at the dealership, and Reg Pettipaw had been in the game a long time, and I had met Reg through Phil Pinckney, and Reg became a customer as well at the dealership. And I was looking for a group of people that we could throw a few dollars in, and if we didn't have any luck, it wasn't going to be all that serious, or nobody was going to miss any meals or education. So that was really all you had to do to qualify, and it was a good group, very good group.
Mm-hmm. Gary here, Brent. Of course, Schooner Stable went to the Lexington Select Sale and purchased Some Beat Somewhere for $40,000. Not a dollar more. Your budget didn't have it, apparently. What was it like taking them back to the Maritimes and prepping them in Truro Raceway in the fall of 2006, early 2007? That wasn't the usual route to the Grand Circuit.
No, and that's a question I get a lot from the people that race on the Grand Circuit. How did you do that? And actually, we brought him to. He was in the Lexington sale in September, and he came to Truro. We got him going right away, and he was just perfect at everything. And when winter moved in between Christmas and New Year's, I took him over to Pictonian Farms and put him on the wheel over there for January, February, and March, and he came back in very good shape. And he was such a great gaited horse and so smart, so willing. He really didn't miss anything at all, and he was in great shape when he came back. And I only jogged him a week, and first time I turned him in when I brought him back, I went up to 3/4 in 2 minutes with him and went a mile and 35 by himself, and that was the first time he had ever been turned and went the right way of the racetrack, and basically dropped him 5 seconds a week, and he handled everything very easily. It was but by then the ice was gone, the snow was gone, and he was in good shape coming off the exerciser, and yeah, he was pretty well idiot proof. There's no question.
Brian, it's Peter. Thank you for coming on tonight. When did you realize you had that very special horse? You took him back, like you said, but was there a moment that you thought, wow, I got something special here?
No, really, I didn't. I thought we had a nice horse. I thought we had a gold Ontario sired horse for sure. That's how he felt to me. I qualified him in Truro 3 times, and he was 2-4, 2-2 in 2 minutes, and it was all pretty well even miles. Let him kick home a little bit, but not really asking him. He was good. He was very comfortable, and when we first took him to Mohawk that summer, he was heading up to race start in this Gold Series, and the Battle of Waterloo was the first plan. And obviously, I had a relationship with Paul, and I'd been telling Paul about him all along, and that I was high on him. And Paul's, most of the drivers hear that from most trainers all winter. And we get out, and I get up there, and I wanted to take him to Mohawk. We rode at Bay Karen, which was a half-mile track. It was a nice little half-mile track, but I wanted to take him in and stretch him out at Mohawk a little bit. And Paul wanted to get behind him. I wanted Paul to get behind him, and I told him I thought we should go a mile around 58, take a couple seconds in for the track change, and I remember handing the lines to Paul and going to the grandstand so I had a good vantage point. And I timed him. I had the watch on him, of course, and I'm seeing the first quarter in 33 seconds, and I'm saying, what are we doing here? We must be going another trip. Anyway, he's got the half and 3 with him, and coming back half and 55, 1 mile 58 flat. And I remember running down, that was pretty impressive. And he was pacing hard through the wire, and he just looked very comfortable to me. And into the turn, and that's a long ways from the wire into the turn at Mohawk. He still was chugging strong and looked very comfortable. And I remember running back over to meet Paul at the paddock when he jogged him back around. He said, and I'd been in Ontario and friends with Paul for a long time before this, and I knew that drivers spend some of their time talking the trainers and the owners down a little bit, because most of us overrate our horses. That's pretty common in the industry. And I remember the first question Paul asked me was if he was paid into the Metro, and of course that was music to my ears. And my question is, do you think he's that kind of horse? And he wasn't long answering the question. That he sure did, and of course he was paid into the Metro. So, when you get that coming from Paul, and knowing Paul the way that I did, and, he just kind of takes things cool and doesn't get too excited. That was a big first question for him to ask me. And, he was pretty high on Beach for sure.
Brent, I want to ask you, actually, I'm going to send it over to Jerry here first. And one of the great things about the interview clips that we're doing tonight is we'll have some videos to share and some photos to share for you. But Jerry's going to set up the 2007 Battle of Waterloo. Jerry?
Thank you, Lee. The 10th annual Battle of Waterloo was held at Grand River Raceway on Industry Day, August the 6th, 2007. It was the Beach's second lifetime start. Going into that race, he was the 4-5 favorite, going for a purse of $300,000, despite drawing post position number 7. And the reason why was because of what he did the week before in his first start. He set the track record in the elimination of the Battle of Waterloo, mile in 54 2. That mile was a Canadian season's record at the time, and established him as the horse to beat in that Battle of Waterloo.
So, Brent, heading into that race, the Battle of Waterloo, just give us your thoughts and why you picked this race to show tonight.
Well, people ask you, I get that question a lot about his best race, and, I can give you a half a dozen of his best races for different reasons. And, the Battle of Waterloo was a bit of a unique race. It was, it was huge money for us. We didn't know Beach was Beach at the time. We knew he was a nice colt. We knew he was the favorite in the Battle of Waterloo. But, that's a long ways to the Grand Circuit. That's a long ways from what he accomplished, he ended up accomplishing before the end of the year and before the end of his racing career. It was a long distance. And but for us Maritimers, $300,000, we had a big offer on him the night in the winner's circle, the night he won his first race. And that race was a track record, and it was a Canadian season record at the time. And he basically did that on cruise control, and we went into the race favorite. And he had a bit of an issue with one leg. He had very few issues health-wise or lameness-wise. He was never injected. He never had any issues at all. And this one day, between the elim and the final, we put a little cork on him before. Thought that Grand River might be a little bit deep. So we put a little bit of cork on him, probably put a little too much on him, and he had a leg blow up on him. So we took the cork back off him, and he was probably pinching a little bit, and he wasn't quite as good in the battle, the final, as he was in the elim. But when they were past the half, and things were setting up pretty good for him, and just when he was getting ready to move, and we're going for $300,000, he throws in a couple of steps, and I'm thinking, oh my God, he's gonna find a way to blow up here, going for $300,000. Which, like I say, he wasn't Beach then. I mean, lots of horses go a couple of good races and can't seem to find their form for whatever reason. After they get a few tough races under them, they tend to go the other way, or they can go the other way. And of course, that's what I'm thinking. We're going for $300,000, and are you going to find a way to blow up? And I was extremely within 2.5 seconds. I was extremely happy when Paul settled him down, and Paul did a great job with him in that race. Lots of people would have got excited. put the whip on their tail to try to get him to come out of this funk that he had got into, and Paul didn't. He settled him down, and it was very, very short time later. It was clear that he was back on stride. He was back hitting his stride, and yeah, he basically the race was over once he found his stride, and I believe that leg was probably hurting him a little bit. He never did that again, and we didn't make any adjustments or anything. We just iced him down, and he didn't. He had a little bit of time between his next start, and he got over it. But it was definitely a game changer, and it's not the first time a horse found a way to blow up when they were going for big money, and that was the first thing that came to my head when he put those steps in, and he certainly put that to rest very quickly. And I never had that thought again after that night or that afternoon. I gotta say, that never came into my head again.
Well, let's watch the race now. Some Beach Somewhere, the 2007 Battle of Waterloo final at Grand River.
Field of 9 for the Battle of Waterloo. Marching towards the starts. And they're off in pacing. Samurai Sealter trying to fire the first shot against Believe in Bruiser down to the inside. And Fun of the Game gets out very well from the second tier and is away to race from third. Keep in Control is fourth. Some Beach Somewhere has moved away to be fifth in the middle of the pack. Then Sturgis Hanover, Ratings Hanover, Dr. J. Holiday, Keystone, Horatio's back trailing the field. It's Believe in Bruiser who's got the front. Fun of the Game's getting a trip right there on the back of Believe in Bruiser. Samurai Sealter is tucked in third in front of Keep in Control. The opening quarter, 27-1. Some Beach Somewhere is back there in mid-pack racing fifth. Then it is Sturgis Hanover. Off stride goes Ratings Hanover. Dr. J. Holiday is third from last in Keystone Horatio. It's Believe in Bruiser and Rick Zuron with the lead as they've raced on to the half in the Battle of Waterloo. On the inside second, Fun of the Game. Here comes, driving on the outside, Keep in Control first over for Jamison. Is only a length and a quarter back. Some Beach Somewhere, well spotted second over fourth. 56-3 was the halftime. On the inside, Samurai Sealter is now racing fifth, just 2.5 lengths off the lead. Marching up on the outside, Sturgis Hanover, then Dr. J. Holiday, Keystone Horatio, and Ratings Hanover, but it's still Believe in Bruiser, who's got the lead at a length and a quarter over Keep in Control. Fun of the Game on the inside third. Some Beach Somewhere still has 2.5 lengths to make up and has rolled out there 3 wide. On the inside, Samurai Sealter is fifth. Then Keystone Horatio's marching 3 wide on the final turn. Sturgis Hanover, Dr. J. Holiday to the inside, and Ratings Hanover trailing 3/4, 125-2. Believe in Bruiser leads to the top of the stretch, but here comes Some Beach Somewhere, and Paul McDonnell, Some Beach Somewhere at the top of the stretch, has come on to take the lead, and Some Beach Somewhere now is cruising down the stretch drive. The 10th Battle of Waterloo final goes to Some Beach Somewhere and Paul McDonnell. Fun of the Game was second, Believe in Bruiser was third, Samurai Sealter was fourth. 155 flat. Some Beach Somewhere wins the Battle of Waterloo.
So, Brent, there it is again for you. You had a look at it, and and you go back to that race. I'm sure it brings back a lot of memories for you. But again, just how impressive was that win for you in that particular day?
Well, it was huge. I mean, it's $300,000, and I mean that's a huge win for a young fella from the Maritimes that's been used to dealing in cheaper horses and racing for lesser money. And it was kind of a mission that we set out to do, and he got the job done. So we were successful, and still then we didn't know the road that we were on, the ride that he was going to take us on was still a long ways from our mind. We turned down $750,000 for him that week, that night, the first win, and that didn't seem like a great big turn down to us with 6 of us in on him. And it was just it was a tremendous win, and of course we got 150 of the 750 we were offered, and still owned them, and yeah, it felt good, and it was just the start. It was a great way to start a career. I mean, I love 2-year-olds. I'm a 2-year-old person, and that's a great race. I like half mile, and so did Beach, and yeah, it was special for sure.
Mm-hmm. Besides that race, the Battle of Waterloo, which other of his career starts amazed you the most, Brent? Was there one special one? I'm sure there's a story with each one, but which was the most amazing for you?
I thought that question would probably get asked, and like there's different, like the race he won in Yonkers was unbelievable against Shadow Play. I mean, that was a miserable night. He was the only horse that won from off the pace that night. The open class, the aged horses went in 54. He went in 52. He missed the Messenger track all time record for by a fifth of a second on a dirty, miserable 5 second, 4 second night off for everybody else. The Breeders' Crown, last race of his career, kicked home in 26 in a piece and made it look easy and set a record that still stands to this day. The super final, Carol Jameson said to me after the super final at Woodbine, he's now a world champion in a snowstorm. And, and he was right again. He won that race by, Ken Middleton said the second place horse was a long distance phone call behind. And I don't know, it was 10 or 12 lengths. The world record in Lexington, the world record in Flamborough, he come home second heat of a half-mile track. They all said he wasn't the half-mile horse. Well, if he wasn't a half-mile horse, then he couldn't go 2 heats. He did both that day, set a world record there, and come home in 26 and 1.5. So I don't know. It depends what day you talk to me is his favorite race or how I'm thinking that day. There's actually every horseman that you talk to has a different race. So it's hard to know. It's the race he get beat. It's not my fondest memory, but it might be his greatest race. It's hard to argue that wasn't his greatest race. It was an unbelievable trip. But I don't know. The Battle of Waterloo set the table, and it was a 2-year-old race. It was in Canada. It was us just getting going. It's clear in my mind, and I liked it. But I got to tell you, I liked most of them. To be honest, I mean, it was quite a ride. There's no question.
No doubt, Brent. Brent, we all realize how great a horse he was on the track, but he went on to become a tremendous sire as well. Did you expect him to become that dominant sire?
What I knew for sure was that, as I said earlier, he had never been injected. He had never been. I was a neophyte competing against a bunch of professionals, and ended up with this horse. You often wonder what would have happened to the horse if he had been with a top trainer. And at the end of the day, it would be hard to believe that a horse that could race like he raced for an inexperienced trainer. It's hard to believe that he wouldn't make a sire, and he did. I mean, he never wore a bandage. He never wore a boot. He was never sick. Like it's a little unbelievable that he passed away the way that he did at such a young age when he was so healthy. They used to say I pulled the blood on him. After every race and a couple of times before the next race, just to make sure everything was okay. And the joke at the blood the lab was that if Beach's blood's bad, there must be something wrong with the machine. We're calibrating the machine to his blood. And they said the same thing about him in the breeding shed. If the mare's not in full, check your mare. It's not him. And the horses that he's sired, Bridget and Hanover done a great job with him. He got great support all over the place, and the horses, obviously the type of mares he bred, the type of horses that he threw, the prices that they paid, they went to good homes, and they were good horses. Doc Egloff says, I think he's probably the greatest or one of the greatest pacers to ever live. I know he's the greatest pacing sire, and it's hard to believe that horse would end up in Truro, Nova Scotia, but he did.
Brent, when we asked you for the segment tonight, we also we have Reg standing by and also Paul coming in here in a minute too. But we asked for a couple of photos, and I know that had to be quite a task to select a couple of photos. You did, though. Why did you select those two?
I selected those two because it showed. It's like that picture right there. That's him. We take our dog with us, and we would take Beach for a walk at night or in the day, just like was the dog, and the dog would come along, and she was just part of the family. And it'd be Rhonda and I, obviously Rhonda took the picture, and that says a lot about him. You know, he's just eating his grass. He's not being bothered by anybody. And when we got to New York with him, we would walk him around Mark Ford's track a lot. And a lot of horses, when they see deer or any other strange animal, even a saddle horse the first time, they react. You know, Beach he come nose to nose with deer, jogging through the woods. He did, and on those walks. And Beach and Lily, the golden there, they both had the same kind of attitude. They were both very smart, and they didn't get very excited about anything. And both of them would just watch the deer walk on by them. And obviously, Rhonda's got Lily's attention. That's another picture that Rhonda took there. That's in Lexington, and you know, not many horses can roll like that. And I mean, he jumped up. We could have sent you a couple more pictures of she was fast shooting him, and when he jumps up, he starts bucking and kicking, and the dust is flying off. And we've got some great shots. And I sent another picture. I don't think you have of our niece. I think she was 3, feeding him hay, and his head's as big as she is, and it just showed the type of horse we wanted to send pictures that showed the personality. A lot of people, most people, have seen the pictures taken by the great photographers on the racetrack, and those were some pictures that we wanted to show him for who he was, and part of our family, and how we treated him, and how he liked to be treated. And he enjoyed life, there's no question.
Brent, your segment tonight, we're looking forward to having you on the show tonight, and you always bring such quality analysis to Some Beach Somewhere, and we do appreciate your time tonight, and thank you for tuning in to the past programs of Virtual Tack Room. Nice to have you on the show tonight.
Thank you guys very much. I appreciate it.
Brent McGrath, of course, the trainer and part of the ownership group with the Schooner Stable, and now we're going to make our way over to another member of that team. He said 6 on the team, and you know, I can tell you that Reg Pettipaw actually and Louise, who we had a great chat with at the O'Brien Awards when they did that tribute to Beach at that time, but also has played a major role with us over the Gold Cup over the years when we needed great horses, and he continues to do that. Reg Pettipaw joins us tonight from New Brunswick. Good evening, Reg.
Good evening.
It's nice to have you on the show tonight. Tell us what it was like to be part of the Schooner Stable.
Thanks for having me. It was great. It was a thrill of a lifetime. I mean, those 2 years went by extremely fast. To race against the best horse in the world and beat him the way we did, it was just incredible.
Can you share with us a few of your favorite memories of the beach, Reg?
I got a lot of them, but I mean, one of his best races was definitely for me was the Messenger. That night, I was sitting down next table to Ron McClellan, who had shadow play. He was there with Serge, and of course, we all know the way Yonkers race. If you draw inside, you definitely got a bigger chance than somebody drawing from the outside. And Beach, I drew the outside that night, and you had to be there to see it, but it was pouring rain. I mean, from the grandstand, you could hardly see the horse on the track. And I was teasing Ron, and I said, if there's one night you can beat us, it might be tonight. And of course, Beach put a performance of his life, as far as I'm concerned. That, to me, that was his best race ever he put up.
Ready to look at that race a little bit later on, but I first wanted to ask you, how important was this horse for harness racing, and in your opinion, what kind of a legacy did he leave in the sport?
Well, he left. I mean, I think the sport was kind of not in the way down. Like PEI's always been up, but a lot of places in New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and even in a lot of places in Canada, the sport was kind of being let down a bit. And I think Beach brought kind of a big thing back. I mean, in Truro, they had those beach parties, and in New Brunswick, the same way, that horseshoe pub, there was a bunch of people. The betting went up, and I mean, the crowds at the North America Cup, I think, was probably as big or bigger they ever seen. I mean, it was fantastic to see how many people are involved in this horse. was called a Canada horse for one reason, because he was. I think everybody really got behind him, and it was just fantastic trail.
I also wanted to ask you, Reg, how will Some Beach Somewhere be remembered by the fans?
Well, I think nobody who's really been in the game will never forget all the stuff that Some Beach Somewhere did. I mean, even at the breeding shed, and now he's going to be his broodmare down the road. But I think he's going to be forever known as one of the great ones, and definitely in his era, he was definitely one of the great ones ever.
Take a look at the Messenger, and we're going to get Jerry to set up that 2008 Messenger at Yonkers Raceway. Jerry, over to you.
Thank you, Peter. Well, one of Beach's greatest performances, without a doubt, came in the 2008 Messenger, the third jewel in Payson's Triple Crown. He joined the party, and it featured a showdown between Little Brown Jug winner Shadow Play and world champion Some Beach Somewhere in the $650,000 event. There was a 6-horse field that night, and it was, as Brett mentioned earlier, and Reg, a miserable wet night at the Yonkers Half-Mile Oval on October the 25th, 2008. Shadow Play would leave on the inside and cut out fractions of 27-1, 56-1, 124-2, and then the two Maritime developed colts engaged in an epic stretch duel, neither one of them looking to give an inch. It was just a fantastic race down to the finish. 152-1 was the time of the mile that night on a track rated 4 seconds off, and that was, as Brent mentioned earlier, just a fifth of a second off the stakes record in that event over a half-mile track. Just an awesome performance. We'll watch it now.
That's right, Jerry. We'll go to the race.
Santana Blue Chip left from mid-pack toward the inside. Legacy and Diamonds. There goes Shadow Play. On the move early. Down to the inside is Dolly as they hit around the turn. And coming away with the lead, Morgan. And Santana Blue Chip quickly confronted on the outside by Shadow Play. And up and close to the action, Some Beach Somewhere. Down on the inside, Legacy and Diamonds fourth as they head to the opening quarter. The trailers are Brother Ray and Dolly is the trailer. Shadow Play on the outside. Muscles to the top to get by Santana Blue Chip to an opening quarter in 27-1 as they move on the paddock turn the first time. Settling in third is an unhurried Some Beach Somewhere and Paul McDonnell. They're 4.5 lengths adrift. Then we come back 1.5 lengths to Legacy and Diamonds. Brother Ray and Dolly can see them all. That's the field of 6 pacers in the Messenger final as they come by us the first time. And later Shadow Play and Dave Miller. Shadow Play and Santana Blue Chip. Off the cones is Some Beach Somewhere. Gapping on the inside, Legacy and Diamonds. Brother Ray moves to follow Some Beach Somewhere, who's given his cue now. They won a half mile in 56-1. And Shadow Play is the one to knock off. Shadow Play off stride around the turn when Brother Ray has made a break into the backstretch. Some Beach Somewhere creeping up on the outside to Shadow Play. Then the entry of Santana Blue Chip. Legacy and Diamonds is under urging 5 lengths from the lead. And then comes Dolly. But Shadow Play is still the target. Some Beach Somewhere looming on the outside. They've gone 3/4 in 124-2 over the sloppy going in the Messenger final. And Shadow Play is the one to knock off. Some Beach Somewhere is right there as they move towards the top of the stretch. Santana Blue Chip's got to do better. Shadow Play confronted on the outside by Some Beach Somewhere. Some Beach Somewhere. Shadow Play is all heart. It's come down to these two in the Messenger final. Shadow Play, Some Beach Somewhere, some champion in 152-1.
Well, Reg, I just want to, when you see that race again, I mean, you described it perfectly, the rain that was coming down that night, and what a stretch drive that was. That is some memory. It's got to be one of your favorites.
It's my favorite race for sure, Beach, and I think it's his biggest performance myself. And in the stretch, I mean, I really thought Shadow Play he had a head in front, and the Beach fought back, and I mean, you had to be there to see it, but the rain was, I'm telling you, it was, but I mean pouring rain. And anyway, he got the job done. I was very, very impressive with that race, and I thought that was his best race ever.
Reg, did you ever dream of being part of a group that owned one of the best standardbred horses of all time?
I think being a Maritimers, nobody believes that. We go to these sales and we always try to basically that's our goal to have a stake horse or so on and so forth. But to have a world champion, I think it's beyond belief. And but it does happen. I mean, average people can still go to the sale and buy one, and you never know what's going to happen, right? And it happened this time. And hats off to us. I guess we were lucky. I just definitely winning a lottery ticket, right?
Mm-hmm. Now we have a few photos to share with you, Reg, that you picked out. Can you tell us a little bit about each of these and why they're special to you?
Yeah, this photo is just it shows Beach muscles and the way he was built and so on and so forth. Like he was built for the Grand Circuit, and I mean we see a lot of standard breds, but some built like him you don't see that too many often. And it shows he was the real deal. This picture here is a picture that my daughter bought me from they got this from an artist. An artist made this picture, and it was sent to my girls bought me this for a gift.
Beautiful photo. And Reg, tell us about this. This was at the Red Mile.
This was at the Red Mile. My wife bought me this for a Christmas gift. Somebody put this thing together in Ontario. It's the original saddle cloth of Beach with the world record, and this was auctioned off. And Louise my wife bought me this for a Christmas gift, which is a memory that basically nobody will have except me, which is great.
Reg, I want to say just a couple of things before we move out of this segment. We got Paul McDonnell standing by here, but at the night of the O'Brien Awards, you and Louise came to Jennifer and I at the end of the O'Brien Awards and said, we want to do something special with Beach during Old Home Week. And I mean, those photos that you shared tonight, I know when we arrived at the track, or when you guys arrived at the track during that, and I guess that was 2018, it was just an amazing display of so many memories over the years. It must be hard sometimes when you look back and just see so many great photos and so many great moments in your career with Some Beach Somewhere.
Yeah, it is. What we did, Lee, when we met at the O'Briens, I guess that after that night, we were very sad. Beach had passed away, and I talked to you, and I guess you were saying the same thing. We should try to do something for Beach and in PEI, Old Home Week, and I kind of forgot about it. And about 3 weeks before Gold Cup night, you called me and you said, Reg, are you still up to do this task, to bring stuff up? And I said, yeah, me and Louise would be happy to do it for you. So basically, we put everything together, and we were happy to go, and we were supposed to do this for one evening. And I guess the fan were so happy that you asked us if we'd leave it there for 3 days, and we were very happy to do it. We did, and I think we were around the display quite a bit, and I was surprised how many people came around and asking questions about the horse and enjoyed all the trophies and so on and so forth. And it was fantastic to do for you guys. I really appreciate it. We got other tracks now asking us to do it, and we'll probably move along and do tracks once everything gets back to normal. But no, we were very happy to do it.
Well, Reg, thank you very much. I know that you're still very much involved. Of course, you've got horse with Ozzie McKay and Emmons McKay, and you have some great history with the Gold Cup and Saucer as well. We've always appreciate your support over the years. And say hi to Louise. You and Louise, take care, and thanks for joining us on this special segment and tribute to Some Beach Somewhere.
Thank you very much, and you guys are all doing a great job, and you got a good show, and keep up the good work, guys.
Thanks very much, Reg. Okay, so next part of this segment is the Some Beach Somewhere segment and our tribute tonight. And of course, we couldn't do Some Beach Somewhere tribute without talking to the man who sat behind him and there's so many great memories over the years. Hall of Famer will be heading into the Hall of Fame this August. Congratulations and welcome to Paul McDonnell on the virtual Tack Room tonight. Paul, good to see you.
Hi, fellas. Thanks for having me on.
We want to start, Paul, before we get into a couple of race clips of you in action, and I'm sure you've heard from Brent and Reg there, but let's start with how did you first meet the Schooner Stable and Some Beach Somewhere?
Well, my relationship goes back a long way with Brent, actually. He came to Greenwood Raceway way back in, I believe it was the late 80s, maybe, 87, 88. And we just happened to be stabled in the same shed row. And I had some Cape Breton roots. My mom and dad were from there, and he was obviously from Truro, and we just got talking. And the first day we just hit it off, and we were friends ever since. So that's basically how I got involved with the rest of the people in the Stooner stables.
Mm-hmm. Jerry here, Paul. Brent shared a little bit about the first time he asked you to go with the beach. Can you give us your perspective the first time you sat up behind him? What was the thoughts? What were you feeling?
Yeah, it was. I guess it was just before the Battle of Waterloo. Brent wanted to take him over to Mohawk and get him trained up a little bit, so he asked me to go over and go with him, and I obliged him. And so, you hear stories from trainers all the time about how good their colt is, and I got a few from Brent that previous winter telling me how nice a horse he was, and but you really don't know until you get on and go. So anyway, we went over that morning, and as soon as I got on the horse, he there was something about him I could tell, like he had the strength and some power there, and he just glided up the stretch like he'd been there all the time, and it was his first time ever at a track of like Mohawk, where there was lots going on, lots to see, but none of that seemed to bother him. Anyway, so I turned him in and I went a mile, and I think I got up to the half, not too quick, and I just asked him to pace there around the half, and he just put it into another gear. And then around the last turn at Mohawk, it's quite a big turn, and he just put it into another gear, and he paced home like 1:27 just for fun. He just did it so easy, and that's kind of cued me right there that could be sitting on something special here.
Paul, it's Peter. What separated the Beach from the other horses? What traits made him one of the best of all time?
Well, I think you have to have a lot of everything, and you have to have that speed. Obviously, you have to have that high speed. You have to have the manners to go with it. You have to have that want, the grit, the desire. And, I've said this before, a lot of good horses have some of those things, but very rarely do one horse have all of them. And I think Beachy found everything. And when we got racing, it was pretty evident that he had it all. And I think even his legacy into the breeder proved it more. So he was just the complete horse.
I'm going to ask Jerry now, before we get to the next clip that's standing by here, the Pepsi North America Cup. Jerry's going to set it up a little bit for you, Paul, before we get you to the race.
Sure.
Early in the calendar, in the 2008 stakes year, Some Beach Somewhere got off to a bit of a slow start. He missed his first two scheduled starts and some training sessions after he bruised a foot in a paddock incident. He came back and won the Burlington Stake and reared into the North American Cup eliminations, winning the fastest of three eliminations, 149 flat. That was just to tick off the track record, so things were looking pretty good. The other two elims went to competitors Badlands Nitro in 150-1 and Deuce Heelster. He had the backing of a large enthusiastic crowd that night, bet him down to a 2-5 favorite, and they were all there to watch Canada's horse. He was quickly becoming a fan favorite, and he was also, at that time, the only undefeated winner of the North American Cup.
Into that race, give us your thoughts. Were you pretty confident that night? Good field.
Yeah, it was a tough field. But again, I had the confidence. I was driving Beach, and I just knew if I could just, keep him out of trouble early and let things settle early, and then let him do his thing down the backstretch, and he had gained quite a bit of respect before that. Everybody kind of knew what kind of horse he was. And, like when I moved him and he put that burst of speed on down the backstretch and took command and got control of the race, it was the determining factor.
Okay, let's watch it now. Some beach somewhere in the 2008 North America Cup at Mohawk.
They're often pacing and quickest off the wings from post 6. Mucho Sleazy fast away here. Joining him from down the center fires out Badlands Nitro, trying to pocket up there for Sears. Inside third, Santana Blue Chip. Some Beach Somewhere gets away fourth as they march to the quarter station. Keystone Horatio shows early speed for Waples from a post 10 start. And McDonnell starts the big fella up. Here comes Some Beach Somewhere out of fourth, and he is third. He is second, and he's going right after command at a quarter of 26 and 4. Mucho Sleazy gives way. Some Beach Somewhere rolls to the front. Back in second, Badlands Nitro is third. Racing along from fourth, Santana Blue Chip. 2 lengths back at the inside fifth now, Deuce Sealster. Behind him sixth, Keystone Horatio. Seventh in the backfield, Sand Shooter. Scooting through at the inside now, Lennon Blue Chip. And the last 2 in the field, we have Art Official, and Dolly is last. The half is coming up next. And Some Beach Somewhere settles into a comfortable stride for McDonnell. The half in 54 4/5. Right there from second, tracking his every move is Mucho Sleazy. The inside third for Badlands Nitro, Santana Blue Chip on a helmet fourth. Overland from in fifth now. Deuce Sealster. Campbell waits on cover, and what Campbell wants is what he gets. Here to the outside from third now. Drives out Badlands Nitro, and so they come to 3/4 chasing after Some Beach Somewhere. Some Beach Somewhere still not getting his cue from McDonnell. He still leads by a length and a half, and he's at 3/4 in 1:22.27 and 1/3 quarter speed. Some Beach Somewhere comes into the stretch. Leads it by 2 lengths. Mucho Sleazy all out second. Badlands Nitro all out third. Santana Blue Chip on a helmet from in fourth. And here's McDonnell, and here he is, Some Beach Somewhere. He's big, he's strong, and he has got it going on. Some Beach Somewhere, and Paul McDonnell by 4. Cup 25 to Canada's horse. Some Beach Somewhere, and he's home in 1:49.
Well, Paul, what a call by Ken Middleton that night. And, I go back and watch that race so many times. It just gives you goosebumps. What do you remember most about that's special about that night at Mohawk? The crowd, everything so much was just so special.
Yeah, it really was. That he was just gaining his people. I mean, they were looking for something to cling on to, I think, the harness racing fraternity. And, that just cemented it right there. They just, when I turned for home, you could just hear the crowd start to cheer and chant. And they took him home and they loved him from day one. And from that day on, I mean, he had people following him to tracks. He had a following that you couldn't believe. And, he got cheered every time he went on the track, even to warm up. So that was the kind of horse he was. And I think that race there that we just watched really cemented it. It made him the darling that he became.
Paul, I just want to follow up on that. And the experience that you mentioned, going from track to track, meeting all the fans across those tracks, talking to the media, the buzz surrounding Some Beach Somewhere. You had a seat right in the first row. What was it like?
It was a little bit surreal. I mean, it was just something that you just didn't see prior to that. I mean, maybe with Nia Tross, I was a little young at that time, but he gathered a following that you wouldn't believe. Like you said, with the press, they were always wanting a glimpse of him. I can remember even in the fall when we went to Red Mile with him, there was people come from all over just to get a glimpse of him. They wanted to watch him train. They wanted to do it before the race, after the race, just to see him up close. And that was really special for all of us. Everybody was enthralled with that. And, even to this day, I mean, there's rarely a week goes by when someone doesn't come along and either mention them, or they'll have a poster, or they'll have a card or something for me to sign. It's just amazing. 12 years later, I'm still asking for autographs on a poster.
Well, Paul, I have to tell you this. It's interesting. To my right here, I have a number of pictures on the wall, and I have a picture of you and I were at the O'Brien Awards a number of years ago now. And of course, you're not in your colors. You're not in your official suit, which, of course, as you know, a lot of people would recognize you by. But you're in a tuxedo that night. And every time I bring people here, and they say, "Who is that?" and I'll say, "Well, that's Paul McDonnell. He drove some beach somewhere." So it's really just made that generic hit of just a horse and a driver that everyone recognizes. You mentioned the Red Mile. I'm going to go to Jerry now to set up the 2008 Bluegrass before we get to that particular moment.
Thanks, Lee. After Beach's record performance in the two-heat Confederation Cup, where he set the world record of 49-2 in the second heat, he came back, won a division of the Simcoe Stakes at Mohawk, and then the plan was to head to Lexington. There was some rumor or talk about a time trial. That didn't happen. He was entered into two stakes, the Bluegrass Stakes the first of the week, and the Tattersall Sale or Stake the second week. And Lexington is where world records go to be made. So there was lots of fans, lots of interest watching to happen to see what Beach was going to do in the big track in Lexington. Artificial won the first division of the Bluegrass that year in 48-3. And Beach come back in his division. They're going for 134,000. Paul puts them on the lead, and they just motored through fractions. 26-4, 52-4 over the half, the three quarters in 119-2, coming home in a world record 146-4. That was a new record for 3-year-olds and equaled the all-age world record for harness horses at that time. A record established a couple of years before by Holder and Hanover, and just cemented the Beach's reputation as one of the greatest of all time.
Paul, we're going to watch the race now. Again, Some Beach Somewhere winning the 2008 Bluegrass at the Red Mile, and we'll get your comments after the race.
Sure.
And they're off. Some Beach Somewhere paces out strongly and has already crossed over against the pylons well before the opening turn. Blue Claw from the inside is racing in second. Mystery Chase up on the outside. Riggins slides past him at the rail, and Some Beach Somewhere is 2 lengths clear at the midpoint of the opening turn. Further back in the field, MCA is racing in fifth. Up front, Hannah's Boy came away in sixth. Tis a Masterpiece, a bit steppy behind the gate, is seventh. Then it's 2 lengths further back to Major Hottie. Racing in ninth right now as Goddess is just in the quarter. Was in 26-4, 26-4 for the opening split, and at the back of the pack, trailing the field as they head onto the backstretch is Dolly, and there goes the Beach. He's letting out in the second quarter. Some Beach Somewhere is now 3 lengths in front for Paul McDonnell. Blue Claw in the loose pocket spot is giving chase, now tightening up the margin just a bit in second. Riggins is following along in the pylons from third. Then it's 2 lengths further back to Mystery Chase. 52-4, 52-4, the half-mile time for Some Beach Somewhere, and he is rolling along as they head onto the far turn, and Some Beach Somewhere is drawing away. He's opened up now to a 4-length lead with less than 3/8 to go. Racing in second is Blue Claw, then further back to Riggins in third as they circle the far turn at Some Beach Somewhere for Paul McDonnell, now on top with a 5-length lead. Some Beach Somewhere through 3 quarters, 119-2. He has a big shot at it as they come to the top of the stretch. It's all Some Beach Somewhere, and he's drawn clear to a 6-length lead with 1/8 of a mile to go. Mystery Chase on the outside is second. Blue Claw is racing in third. Some Beach Somewhere a 16th from the finish. Mystery Chase a distant second. It's Some Beach Somewhere. He is heading down to the wire. Some Beach Somewhere. McDonnell pushes him home. 146-4, equaling the world record.
Well, Paul, it's so great to hear the late great Sam McKee there with that call as well. 146-4. You saw that race again, an incredible race. I'm sure a race that you've seen multiple times as well. What kind of feeling does that bring back for you?
Oh, great feelings, and it was great to hear Sam McKee's voice there. He did a spectacular job on that race. He was a big fan of the Beach. I talked to him years after, and he would always say, "Wow, that horse was something else." So it was nice to know that he was a fan. That particular day was, I was a little concerned about the weather that day. It was nice and sunny there, but there was a bit of a breeze, and it was a little cool. It wasn't ideal conditions. And, Brent and I, we were discussing whether we should even go for it or just worry about winning the race first, And John Campbell actually come along and asked me what I was thinking. And I said, well, I'm not sure yet, it's not perfect conditions. And he tipped me, he said, well, just to let you know, the first quarter, you don't want to really get down there that fast. He said, just rate him a little bit, because after you get past the quarter, the track kind of goes like downhill a little bit, and he'll pick up his speed as he goes there. And he was bang on there. I could just feel him getting stronger going down the backstretch. And so I let him pace on to the half in 52, and then he was still doing it so easy, and 3/4 in 19 and change, and then he did the rest from there. So a couple of little tidbits about what went on prior to that, but afterwards, the winner's circle was just mayhem. I mean, there was people coming out all from everywhere. It just seemed. I didn't know half of them. Maybe they were just fans. Maybe they were friends of owners. I don't know, but it would just seem like it was mayhem. Afterwards, I had people taking my whip. I had people wanting my gloves. I had their autographs to sign, and they were overwhelmed. And they clapped them all the way down past the grandstand and standing ovation. And it was just a surreal feeling to be involved in that.
Paul, it's Peter again. I just wanted to ask you, what was it like to be in the bike when Some Beach Somewhere was in full flight?
Well, he just had that power and strength. I mean, there was little that I had to do. He just, when we felt him on the lines, he just had that strength that most horses didn't have, and he was just a phenomenal creature.
Paul, it's Kent here. First of all, congratulations on the election to the Hall of Fame. Very well deserved. You've had an amazing career. Consecutive years of winning over $1 million is an amazing statistic, and you're certainly well deserving of the honor you're going to get in August. When we look at Beach, what do you see as some of the traits that they're passing on to his sons and through daughters of Beach now? And what do you feel is going to be his legacy in the standardbred breed?
Well, some of his traits, I see a lot of the horses have his gait that he's produced. They got that slick going gait, and from the trainers that I've trained a few of them myself, and the people that train his baby said they just come to their speed so quickly. They're so advanced. So I think he gave that to most of his offsprings. And as far as his legacy in the breeding shed, I think it's already done. I mean, he's won, I think, all the there is as a sire, and now he's going to be a broodmare sire, and I think he'll really step up in that regard as well. I mean, he crosses with great new stallions that are out there now, and we'll see his name for years and years in the history books as far as the breeding books.
Paul, it's been a pleasure, an absolute pleasure to have you on the show tonight. We were looking for a way to do a tribute to Some Beach Somewhere, and we saved it for the final show of our virtual Tack Room series. And so it's so great to talk to you. And as Kent just mentioned, and we mentioned off the top, so deserving with your induction coming up in the Hall of Fame in August. Thanks for sharing some of your great memories with Beach, and continued success to you, and congratulations on your nomination.
Well, I thank you guys, and also I want to just say what the other people have said, how great of a job you've done. This is a great promotion during this COVID-19 situation we're all in, and it was a great outlet to watch your show here and listen to all the great horsemen. I really enjoyed Clarkie Smith earlier. He was I've known him for quite a while. When he was in Ontario, he was just a great guy, and I enjoyed listening to him earlier on. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. That's Paul McDonnell, the driver of Some Beach Somewhere and going into the Hall of Fame. Well, we continue on here tonight. You're with the virtual Tack Room tonight, UMI Sports. We're on the Facebook page with UMI Sports page. And we're also joining us tonight. You can view us at redshores.ca. Just click on the live racing tab. And we mentioned about virtual Tack Room and how we were going to close this out. We couldn't do it in a better style than we're going to do it with a tribute to Joe O'Brien. And certainly a gentleman that I've had the pleasure of knowing over the years, and I know how much he's done on and off the racetrack, including playing a key role of the opportunity that we have now at Red Shores, and that is Mike O'Brien, who joins us for the tribute to Joe O'Brien segment, and actually joins me in the studio here, not far from where I am. So good evening to you, Mike.
Good evening, Lee, and good evening, Peter and Jerry, Kent. Great to see everybody.
Mike, we're going to start. Your dad, Claude, Uncle Joe, and their brothers and sisters grew up in Alberton, Prince Edward Island, and grandfather Harry was well known, of course, for a well-known horseman, designed many PEI tracks. We have a picture there of one of the several pictures that we're going to show tonight of the O'Brien stables. Tell us about your family's history in harness racing.
Well, my grandfather, Harry O'Brien, married Jenny Foley, and right after he got married, he apparently built a racetrack. He was always involved in harness racing, and it has been reported that there were 60 racetracks that operated in Prince Edward Island, various communities at one time or another. And the reason for that, racetracks were kind of the centerpiece for events that were events held. And so Harry built the racetrack, and basically that's the environment that the four boys that were in harness racing, there was 5 boys and 2 girls in that family. There was Bill, who went off to New York and stayed there and worked there for many years. Ray worked had a stable in the Maritimes, raced for many years. My father worked for the telephone company, but was always involved in horses. Lloyd O'Brien, who Clarkie mentioned earlier in his segment, he got killed in a car accident in '48, and then of course Joe was the youngest. So Joe grew up in that environment, and the picture here, Jack O'Brien, a first cousin of mine, is on the left there. And that over to the right of that would be the shed row. There were 2 shed rows, and there is that's where the horses came race day or the day before races to kind of to stable. And then there was a main barn and also a blacksmith shop where Jack's father made shoes and did other blacksmith work. And on the track itself, there was a small grandstand and a judge's stand. So it was quite an establishment.
Mike, it's Peter. Thanks for coming on tonight. Joe O'Brien left the family farm and moved to Nova Scotia at a very young age to train horses. We're going to bring a picture in here. And could you just tell us about this photo and Joe's move to Nova Scotia?
Yeah, Peter, that was in 1935, and the story is that there was a William Latta who had 6 horses that he needed to be trained, and some young horses that need to be broke, and he had gotten sick, and he was looking around for somebody to come and look after his horses. Joe had just finished high school at that time, and his mother thought he might go on and get further his education, but he was too interested in horses. And Joe had heard that Mr. Latta was looking for someone, so Joe wrote him a letter and applied. Mr. Latta apparently heard of the O'Briens and thought he was getting one of the older brothers, and he hired him. So anyway, Joe made his way to Summerside. He borrowed some money from my father and went to the Glasgow area. And when Mr. Latta saw him, he was quite disappointed because Joe was only 18 at the time, and he was not very big, as you can see. These 2 horses are very, very tall. But anyway, he had a very successful year that year, and he one horse sold for $1,500, another sold for $1,000 early on, and then he raced another horse, and that sold later on as well. And so that was his start in Nova Scotia.
Jerry here, Mike. As you mentioned, Joe very quickly became successful. He became one of the top drivers and horsemen on the Maritime circuit in the 30s and 40s. Can you tell us a little about that phase of Joe's career?
Yes, well, after that first year in 1935 with the Latta horses, he opened a public stable and he started his career at that time. And he raced horses in the Maritimes for 2 or 3 years. And in the fall of the year, they would go off to St. Stephen, Woodstock area, and Lewiston, Maine. Lewiston, Maine had what they call the overcoat meet, I guess because it was a little colder. And so he did that for several years. And of course, he always loved coming home. He always talked about Old Home Week. And I think he was leading driver in 45, 46, and 40, 44, 45, and 46. And in Old Home Week, and he was leading driver in a number of places as well. And so that was kind of his routine up until 1947. So he raced from 1935 to 1947 throughout the Maritimes, northern New Brunswick, and Lewiston, Maine. In the fall of 47, his horses really raced well, so he took them all to Foxborough, Massachusetts, and he did a lot of catch driving there. He was leading driver there, and then he came home after that. So after that event.
Mike, as you mentioned, Joe moved on to the Eastern Seaboard and moved on to racing in the Grand Circuit. And we've got a picture of a horse called Indian Land. I know you have a story of about this time and this horse that you have relayed to me.
Yeah, that's right, Kent. And so after 1947, Castleton Farm called and asked Joe if he would be second trainer for their horses. And one of the horses in their barn was Indian Land. And in 1948, they had what they called the Golden West Pace, and it raced for $50,000. It was held at alternating tracks, some years at Santa Anita, which was a half-mile track, and Hollywood Park, which was a mile track. And that race went from 46 on through to 1954, I believe. And Indian Land was entered into that race, and the race was in Santa Anita. It was actually on the half-mile track. There was 18 entries, and Joe drew 13. And anyway, as the race went on, Joe apparently worked his way through the crowd, etc., and downhanded the wire. He kind of snuck through and won that race. And that was $50,000 in 1948 was a lot of money. So, and it was interesting too. We used to go to the movies those days at the Capitol Theater, which is now the Mackenzie Theater. And prior to the main movie coming on, they would show a newsreel of the various events. And they showed that race, or a clip of that race, on shortly after it was held. So it's kind of interesting.
Well, Mike, you talk about some of the clips that we have and news clips, and we're going to something special here now. Joe O'Brien appeared back in 1983 on a radio show. It was called Island Sports Rap. At that time, a show hosted by Posty Conley and Larry Ritzlinski in Charlottetown here in Prince Edward Island. And the show became known as Sports Rap and syndicated nationally as well. So we want to thank Larry and Posty for providing some of these clips. And we're going to hear a little bit of Joe talk about some of the great horses with that audio clip now.
You know, that's a big order. It's hard, you know, over a period of 50 years, I've had a lot of good horses. I have always thought that Scott Frost was the greatest horse I ever drove. I bought him as a yearling and had him all his life. He was the first horse in history to ever win a race in 2 minutes. Ever a first 2-year-old, I mean, either trotter or pacer. And he was a very, very fast horse, and he was such a good-mannered horse. He had such high speed. I regard him as my greatest horse. I think perhaps if I had him today, I could win a couple of $1 million in 1 year with him. But at that time, we raced for very small purses. What about for
Fresh Yankee? Would she fall into your ranking?
Fresh Yankee was a machine. She was the greatest little racing machine you could imagine. I raced her 2 heats in Sweden one Sunday. On Tuesday, she flew out of there and went to New York and was trucked to New Jersey and put in quarantine for 24 hours. And I got her out of quarantine, and I put her back on a plane and flew her to Chicago and won with her Saturday night. So that's not very many horses you could do that with in 6 days from Sweden to Chicago. She was just a regular machine. She'd just do exactly what you wanted her to do.
The fastest horse in history, the world champion Steady Star, up until the appearance of Niatros on the scene. How would you rate Steady Star as a racehorse?
Steady Star could have been a great racehorse, I think, but as a 2-year-old, the people that had him in Tennessee raced him. He was 10 or 15 seconds the best in the stakes all summer. And they raced him right on the front end, and almost every place they went for the track record, which most of the places they got it. But it made the horse so that he didn't know anything else but just go to the front and go as fast as he could. But he was a very fast horse, and a great gaited horse, and could have been a good racehorse if he'd been educated properly.
Mike, we're going to take a look at Joe O'Brien now, and Fresh Yankee, who was one of the greatest stories in harness racing history, purchased $100 by Duncan MacDonald of Sydney, Nova Scotia, and ended up competing against the best trotters in the world. So we're going to take a look at a race. It's the 1970 International Trot from Roosevelt Raceway, and Ken Workington is on the voiceover here.
On the outside, but here comes a key move from Joe O'Brien, who's able to slip off the rail in front of Barbablu and get cover now behind the great French mare Undamai. 3/4, 135. They continue around the turn, and the two French trotters again matching strides here. Tadeli and Pello on the inside, Undamai on the outside, and now Fresh Yankee with Joe O'Brien in good stalking position, third on the outside. Barbablu gaining ground steadily. That's Lion saving ground towards the rail. And now, with the USA, the representative with William Meyer, Diane makes a 3-wide brush past the mile marker in 2:05. And off stride goes Barbablu from Italy. And 3 wide, here comes Fresh Yankee, full of trot for Joe O'Brien to pounce on the dueling French trotters as they turn for home in the Roosevelt International Trot. Fresh Yankee on the outside gets the lead. Tadeli and Pello digging in. Undamai. Stylish Major driving through on the inside for New Zealand to get the third spot. But the rags to riches story continues for Canada's Fresh Yankee as she wins the 1970 Roosevelt International Trot in 2:35.1. On the outside.
You know, when we race, say for instance, when we race in the Maritimes, there might be 7 horses in a class, in a field. There'd be 2 real good ones, there'd be a couple more about 2 seconds slower, and the rest of them would be about 3 or 4 seconds slower. So all you did, you played cat and mouse, you kind of watched for that one horse that you thought was the best. Now when you get in a race, take for instance at the Meadowlands, they have 10 horses in every field, and all 10 of them can go about the same. And there isn't a horse, if you get a 10-horse field there at Meadowlands, there isn't a horse in there that couldn't win it. So everybody's out and going. There's no such a thing as waiting and playing cat and mouse with the one that you think you have to beat, because when you get in a race at the Meadowlands, you have to beat 9 horses.
Right, Joe. How much driving are you doing today, Joe?
I haven't driven yet this year. I have 8 horses racing down at Los Alamitos, but my stepson is racing them. I stay home here and train the colts like I do most winters. But as soon as we ship out of California in April, I will be doing all the driving then.
So you're really looking to get back in the sulky very shortly again, then, eh?
Yes.
Right. Could you offer just perhaps a few tips for young drivers today?
Well, the very first tip I could give any driver of any age is honesty. So many of them get tempted, and there's always 2 or 3 or 4 fellows around that will tempt them. They say, oh, listen, we got a horse tonight. Mister, you take it easy with your horse. I think we can win, or some such thing. I think honesty is the main thing, and hard work is the other. Just get out there and do your best. You got to be sharp and keep alert.
And that was a clip from Joe O'Brien talking on Sports Wrap in reply to the late Brian Andrew asking Joe about changes in driving styles over the years and looking for tips for young drivers.
And Jerry, just to follow up on that, in the same interview, his next answer, Joe O'Brien mentions honesty and hard work. And we want to let you listen to the end of this clip as well, immediately after a young person calls in to talk to Joe O'Brien. Here we go.
Well, the one time that I can remember of, I was driving a mare called Cavolo in St. Stephen's, New Brunswick. I had driven her most of the summer. And the first heat, when we went in the first turn, a horse fell down in front of us and we had an accident. So I got hurt. I had to have my boys carry me and set me on the sulky for the second heat. When I was going out on the track for the second heat, the old man that trained her run up behind me and he said, "Don't finish better than fourth." I thought I'd misunderstood him at first. I said, "What'd you say?" He said, "Don't finish better than fourth." He said, "Those sons of bitches up there made her the favorite." And I hollered to my boys. I said, "Come here and pick me off at this sulky." So they did. They come over and picked me off the sulky, and I passed him the lines, and he went out with her and finished fourth.
Okay, we're going to our lines with Danny Joe, a young fellow on the line. Go ahead, Danny.
Hi, Joe. Do you remember me?
I don't know. What's your last name?
I helped your brother Clyde with the horses.
Oh, yes, I remember you, Danny.
Is there any tips you could give a young fella that might be a driver someday?
Louder, Danny. I can't hear you.
Is there any tips you could give a young fella if he wants to be a driver someday?
Yes, I would say just keep working at it. Be honest and keep working. And sooner or later you'll make it. If you're honest and you get the right, everybody knows you're honest, it makes a heck of a difference. Just don't ever cheat on anything.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, Danny.
Well, that's a great clip there. And, of course, we all know, and if you didn't, that's Danny McDonald, who, of course, would be around Claude's barn. And Joe, he told me the story. He told us the story many times. When Joe would come home, he'd have an opportunity to see Joe, and he also gave him his school picture. Then had an opportunity to call into that show. We thought it was pretty neat, actually, to hear Danny ask the question and for Joe O'Brien to answer that is quite special when you ever go back to it now.
Danny lived within a couple of 100 yards of my father and mother's property there, and of course he was at the barn all the time. And Jerry, you lived close by as well, so you were around there too. So a lot of kids grew up. A lot of the kids that grew up in that area, because of the horse activity, etc., would wander over there and spend some time. And my father absolutely just was thrilled, to see the young people there. So Jerry had a sister, Claire, who was a regular at my father's place for many, many years.
Mike, back in 1990, in recognition of Joe's outstanding career, the National Harness Racing Awards in Canada were renamed the O'Brien Awards in his honor. And then in 2014, on the 25th anniversary of the O'Briens, the event was held in Charlottetown, the only time they were ever held outside of Ontario. Can you tell us what it meant to you and your family to have the O'Briens held here on PEI?
Yeah, Jerry, we were very pleased that it came to PEI, and of course we're very honored about and proud of Joe's accomplishments. What he achieved over the years. So when that came here, and I have to give a shout out to Kent Oakes, because at that time Kent was in a position, being on the board of Standardbred Canada and going in as incoming president. He was in a position to do something, and he did do something. He convinced people to come here. He convinced government to get on side. He convinced the board of Standardbred Canada. And the event here was very successful. My understanding, Kent, it was It was the largest crowd ever. You can see, and to those, it meant a lot to people who probably would never get to the affair in Toronto. A lot of people from the region, certainly a lot of people from Prince Edward Island were able to get to it. I know that there were several people on the organizing committee that were given tickets to go to the event, and they spoke to me, and they said it was just a wonderful thing to see everybody dressed up and the pomp and it was so ceremonial, the way they do everything. So we were very pleased, and not so sure that this picture here now is myself, and Jack is to the right of the person holding the trophy. I don't know the other people. Jack is my first cousin, of course. So yeah, it was a real accomplishment. I think that was taken in Summerside with my father, where Joe came home and drove a couple of races in Summerside one time.
Thanks for the kind words, Mike. And I should mention, I do recall we put together a presentation to the Standardbred Canada board back, I guess it was the year previous, and Brett Revington was on the board at the time, and Lee Drake and I, Lee will recall, the three of us made the presentation to the board. We had received approval from the minister responsible, Wes Sheridan, at the time, and actually David McKenzie was the Deputy Minister of Tourism and was in charge of the 2014 funding. So we had a lot of right people in the right places at that time, and it's certainly one of the great memories that I have of my career to be able to be involved with, as you mentioned, just a wonderful group of people who volunteered to put together the 2014 awards and the component that we had in Charlottetown. Mike, a lot of people know you in your professional career as an accountant, and certainly in your critical as Deputy Minister on PEI, and as a board member of Atlantic Lottery in support of harness racing, and particularly during the construction of the new facilities in Charlottetown. But you were also a long-time owner, trainer, driver, and we wanted to show everyone a video of Mike in action with Harborview Bunter, and we're going to roll that video now.
Herbert racing on a 5. They pass the halfway point. It's the 2-year-old Harborview Bunter on top. Bon Breeze second. FG Jenny outside. They race in 3. Following wide in 4 is Aaron's Mall. They go to the 5/8 half in 104. It's Harborview Bunter still on top. Outside second is FG Jenny. Bon Breeze racing it along the rail third. Aaron's Mall up on the outside. Fourth, Andy Oakham fifth. And on Diana Kiwi Kelly. Hector Herbert at the back. They race some by the 3/4 with the lead up front. Is Harborview Bunter, has it by 1.5. Racing second, Bon Breeze. Aaron's Mo coming 3 wide, outside and 3. Andy Oakham racing fourth. The pace quickens as they swing for home. 1:35 and 4 by the 3/4. It's Harborview Bunter by 2. Bon Breeze racing second, Andy Oakham third. Through the stretch for the mile, right down to the wire. It's all Harborview Bunter, Bon Breeze, Andy Oakham for 3. To the wires, unofficial winner of race 6, number 1 and 3, Harborview Bunter. 2-year-old pacing brown colt by Major League from the Dam Dancer Greenwood. On by Mike O'Brien of Sherwood. Mike picks up his 5th winning drive of the season. He's the Rothmans 2-year-old champion of 1984. Showing us why here tonight. Last quarter, 29 and 1 quite effortlessly. 2:05 the mile for 1, Harborview Bunter.
Just a great shot there, Mike. So many great memories over the years, and I'm sure there's quite a few people that are tuned in tonight that, as Kent said, they know your professional career, but you had quite a few times on the racetrack as well, and that's a special memory for me. I remember when you were in the driving suits.
Yeah, thank you, Lee. It's interesting, my groom there, that little fellow, that was Danny McDonald.
Was it? Oh, I didn't know that. That's fantastic. I will say this: when we put the virtual Tack Room together, the final segment of the show for the week, and we have our Monday night call with Kent and Peter and Jerry, and then later on with Scott. Couldn't think of a better way to end off the show than with a tribute to Joe O'Brien. And I must say that personally, you've done so much for so many careers. In my career, I know that I look towards you as well, and you've given some great guidance. And I know a lot of people in Prince Edward Island feel that you've played an integral part and role with the development of harness racing, especially going into 2005. So, you know what, tonight's opportunity to have you on the show and to talk about Joe O'Brien and what it means is a real treat. Thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you, guys. And Lee, just let me echo what everybody else said. I mean, this show came at a great time. It filled a void. We missed our routine things that we normally do, and we were looking for something to do. I've watched every show, and I found everything very interesting. And you've had some great guests, and it's interesting too that Clarkie talked about honesty and integrity as well. Earlier on when he mentioned, he didn't want to have a lame horse. He didn't want to be caught with a drug with a positive test. So I think that's the theme about that we should sort of spread in the horse game. We really have to get rid of all this drug stuff. Clean up that nonsense, because the media, if there's an isolated case, that's what they're going to focus on. And there's so many good people in this industry, so many great people in this industry, and like Clarkie Smith and others, and those are the people that you were able to kind of showcase during this period.
Well, thank you very much, Mike. That's Mike O'Brien tonight, and joining us on our final show for Virtual Tack Room tonight, and during a segment is a tribute to Joe O'Brien. Well, guys, that's it for this week, and that's it for the next few months as we get back to racing here. I know that we said it off the top. We don't really know what the next chapter of Virtual Tack Room is going to be. However, while we go around the horn here and say goodnight to everyone, Peter, I'll start with you. It's been a real special time.
It certainly has, Lee. And again, I think what everybody said, this show came at the right time. Thank you to Kent for coming up with the idea. He asked us to come aboard. We certainly wanted to. And Lee, as the weeks went by, the show just got better and better. And I can't believe the people we've talked to. The feedback has been tremendous. And we thank everybody for watching, Lee. I hope there is a season number 2.
All right, thank you, Peter, and good night to you. Jerry, 10 shows in the books here now, and so many great memories. And I think what really stands out for me is the opportunity that we have these shows now recorded, and we've talked to so many great people. And again, it adds to another segment of Your Memory Lane.
Sure does, Lee. Always great. We have such a rich, deep history. Tons of great stories. We just were able to scratch the surface of things here over the last 10, 11 weeks. Great guests with just incredible knowledge and openness to share some of those tales with us. And all the great fans that followed along, and the positive comments that came back from them, the reception we got, just made the whole thing a wonderful adventure, and has helped the time go past like couldn't believe. Here we are on the eve of getting back ready to race the next Thursday, and what a wonderful opportunity it was. Glad to be part.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Good night to you. And Kent, we'll end off, here it is, Virtual Tack Room, that call that we got 10 weeks ago, and we were chatting, and would you have ever believed that a show like this would have taken off, and now you must be very proud of how it all came together.
I'm very proud of our team, of yourself, Peter, Jerry, and Scott, that have contributed so much to making it the success that it is. Certainly very thankful to the sponsors and all the wonderful guests we've on, and certainly most of all to the people that watched. And certainly want to echo Jerry's comments. There's so many great people and so many great stories out there that I hope we get the opportunity to do it again.
All right, thank you, Kent. All right, and that ends off. Usually around this time, we come out with an extra that will get us to the next show. Well, in the next little while, there won't be a next show, but we do have some special comments I want to make on behalf of the team. First of all, this was never about us. There was always an opportunity to get together at a time when we had to stay apart. We always took it seriously when it came to the comments of the Chief Public Health Office and Premier Dennis King, and and his entire team and government of Prince Edward Island, because at the end of the day, they're doing it to keep us safe. And so we follow those guidelines, and we will continue to do so moving forward. So this type of show was as much about an opportunity to pull us together and keep us all together at a time when they needed it the most. So for that, we're very thankful. Going forward, we want you to stay safe. We want you to continue to follow the guidelines, and an opportunity for us to maybe come back with another chapter of Virtual Tack Room. So on that side of it, we want to thank you for joining us. And while we end tonight, let's end with our next chapter that we know for sure, and that's live racing will return on June the 4th without spectators. And we're going to kick it off as we end off this show tonight with a little kickstart of what's in to come with our official race day video. Good night.
Okay, turning in, post time.
Broadcasting live from Prince Edward Island, this is Race Day.